Hello everybody. Today I have got for you top 5 non-flying flying magic cards. And by non-flying flying I mean that these cards are supposed to be flying, but they're not flying in magic. They don't have the flying ability. How could this have happened? That's actually very easy to explain. Back in those days there was very little coordination between artists and the game designers. So very often the artist would just have the name of the card and they couldn't really understand what it was about and had a lot of freedom. And sometimes this led to some situations like this one. So as for these 5 cards, they're definitely one of those cards I would mention as cards that should be flying. And this one is an interesting honorable mention, but then again it gets mentioned quite often when I talk to people about some goofs like that. So let's start with it right away. That is, my friends, Frozen Shade. Shades are not necessarily flying creatures, because you have got various shades, such as Nantuko Shade, as you understand. That is just an insect. But this guy is clearly flying, because he has got his cape that is just being held up by the wind, and he has got this kind of vortex here. I'm not entirely convinced that this card has to be flying, because we do have some Jinn, for example, that is not flying and still has this kind of vortex. So I'm not saying that this is necessarily a huge mistake, but of course it would be nice if this creature would be flying, both flavor and mechanics wise. So it's an honorable mention as a non-flying flying card. So if that guy was supposed to be flying, then definitely the same can be said about the Wretched. The Wretched is a card that doesn't get mentioned very often for obvious reasons, because it's not very powerful, even though it can be fun. I'm definitely going to use it one day in one of my decks. So the Wretched, what kind of a demon is it? I think it's some kind of a skeleton with some bony hips / demon with those horns, and he's got some barbed wire. I think that he could definitely fly with those huge wings and his bony physique, so why not? This one is much more interesting, because what we can see here is some kind of a vampire creature, as I understand. And the interesting thing is that this card has a direct link with flying, because it says target creature loses flying ability until end of turn. It's very logical for green, not to have very many flying creatures, even though back in those days there was no idea of the color pie and that green couldn't have a lot of flyers, because it did have quite a lot of nice flyers back in 93-94. Anyway, it is a spirit. My biggest question is whether this is the Regent spirit, or this is the creature suffering because it was, affected by this Regent spirit and had flying taken away from it. I'm not entirely convinced about this one. I still think that this is the Regent spirit himself. And what happened to him is just a mystery. Maybe he decided to activate this ability on himself and he lost flying because of it. Who knows? The Imp. As you can see, this is a more or less classical imp. That's definitely a classical D&D imp, because it has got this pointy tail as a kind of a little devil, and it has got the wings, so he definitely could fly, but he has some more important things to do. He is not a really combatish creature, so to say. He is more of a trickster, and it's really nice that we have got this card. It's really a fun card. But then again, why not give him flying so that he could jump block? He definitely must be flying. Definitely must be flying based on this card, if you look at the picture. The same can be said about the Sphinx. Again, not a very popular card. But if you look at those wings, he has got not just 2 wings as I see it from here. This made me like 2 pair of wings, 4 wings, and definitely a Sphinx like that is supposed to be flying, but this particular creature is preoccupied with something else. Then again, 3-4 is a very, very solid card. It's a very powerful card by the measures of this particular set, and if this card had flying, it would be, you know, much more pleasant to use, because the ability is a lot of fun. Of course, the biggest mistake is a non-flying bird. How could this have happened, my friends? I do not really know. And Douglas Schuller is a very talented artist. I don't know how this happened. And Whippoorwill, if I'm not mistaken, I have never heard about this particular bird. I had never heard about this particular bird before I stumbled upon this particular magic card, and I'm sure that this is not a name that many people are familiar with. Maybe this is why it happened. So I have no idea why this particular card doesn't have anything to do with flying. Because, I mean, it's not just something that has wings, right? The Ratchet has wings, but it's not flying here. This guy may have lost flying due to some tragic accident. This guy is preoccupied with some little mischievous things. This one is kind of soaring in the air, but maybe it's just magical. But this is a creature that has wings, and it is currently flying, but it doesn't fly in the game. So there you go. Some neat little flying, non-flying creatures. Or should I say non-flying, flying creatures? I'm a little bit confused. This is all really confusing. Still, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for discussing it with me. I hope you have got some comments. Maybe you have got some other ideas about non-flying flying cards, some other cards that do not really make sense in terms of flavor and mechanics and art. I would really like to hear that, and maybe I could feature some of these cards in my future videos. So please let me know what you think of it. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more. Bye.